Our fauna is important to our ecosystem as they are a huge part and greatly contributes to various biochemical cycles in our ecosystem. However, there are those who cause more harm to our environment, and these are invasive species.
Invasive species. What are invasive species? Invasive species is an organism that causes ecological or economic disruption to a new area where it is not native. Invasive organisms or invasive species can affect both the natural resources of the ecosystem and the human use of these resources. An invasive species can be introduced to a new area via the ballast water of ocean-going ships, intentional and accidental releases of aquaculture species, aquarium specimens, or bait, and other means. Invasive species are capable of causing extinction of native plants and animals, reducing biodiversity, competing with native organisms for limited resources and altering habitats. This will result in massive economic effects and significant disturbances of coastal and Great Lake environments.
Or fauna likely play a more instrumental role in carbon cycle and storage than previously understood, making wildlife management a potential avenue for mitigating carbon emissions. Fauna can be a part of the carbon cycle by eating plants and releasing carbon by respiration. All living things are part of the carbon cycle, and it doesn't affect the cycle since the consumption of carbon is balanced. Terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems is a key in the cycle since it consumes half of the carbon dioxide emitted. Carbon cycle is married to fauna considering it takes place in the same ecosystem and the carbon cycle in the ecosystem is balanced, since every organism there is a part of the carbon cycle. Animals or fauna are part of the cycle since carbon moves from plants to animals, then animals to soil, and living things to the atmosphere. The contribution of fauna and animals to the carbon cycle is that it gives carbon to the atmosphere and consumes carbon by eating plants.
Now, let's take a closer look on how the fauna around us is involved within the carbon cycle process. The carbon moves from the plants to the animals, and through food chains, the carbon that is in plants moves to the animals that eat them, and the animals that eat other animals get the carbon from their food too. So the carbon moves from these animals to the soil. When animals die, their bodies decompose, bringing the carbon into the ground. Some is buried and will become fossil fuels in millions and millions of years. Carbon also moves from the animals to the atmosphere. Each time that you exhale, you are releasing carbon dioxide gas or CO2 into the atmosphere. Animals and plants need to get rid of carbon dioxide gas through a process called respiration. And finally, carbon also moves from the atmosphere into the oceans. The oceans and other bodies of water absorb some carbon from the atmosphere, and that carbon is dissolved into the water. And then the process repeats again.
Anthropogenic effects also equates to human impacts or the effects done by human activities. There are three main phenomena caused by human activities that impacted fauna and the carbon cycle negatively. These are deforestation, hunting, and pollution. Deforestation is the razing of forests to make the land available for other purposes. Humans cut down trees for different reasons. They cut it down for wood, construction, or they'll be using the land for mining. However, when humans cut large portions of forests, this leads to portions of wildlife habitats being destroyed. With this, wildlife species were forced on a smaller space, which intensifies competition for hunting food and predation. This ultimately results to massive loss of wildlife species due to starvation or being eaten by natural predators within their area of migration. Hunting is a leisure activity that has a direct effect on fauna. They purposely killed wildlife species in forests for self-satisfaction. Because of this, hunting is one of the major factors contributing to the extinction of wildlife species. Lastly, pollution has a large effect to the balance of the carbon cycle. Pollution is the introduction or emissions of harmful and toxic materials into the environment. According to statistics, about 21 billion tons of carbon dioxide are emitted every year. This is twice of what the Earth can tolerate, which means there is a 10.6 billion increase of carbon dioxide emissions that the Earth cannot handle. Deforestation also plays a large role in the carbon cycle. Since trees convert carbon dioxide to oxygen, lesser trees also equates to lesser oxygen being converted. This leads to unequal amounts of carbon dioxide and oxygen present in the environment and continually disrupts the balance of the carbon cycle.
Epigenetic is the study of heritable changes in gene expression that do not involve changes to the underlying DNA sequence, which in turn affects how cells read the genes. Epigenetic mechanism drives development processes and have also been shown to be tied to disease development. How does this correlate to invasive species? Well, invasive species are not native in the area, and since they are not new to the region, they will need to adapt so that they can survive, but them being there alter its environment negatively. Epigenetic inheritance plays a crucial role in many biological processes, such as gene expression in early embryo development, imprinting, and the silencing of transposons. It has recently been established that epigenetic effects can be inherited from one generation to another. Environmentally induced epigenetic modifications have also been proposed as one mechanism underlying rapid adaptive evolution of invasive species. Introduced colonies also showed a significant reduction in DNA methylase. Introduced colonies also showed a significant reduction in DNA methylation levels. Introduced colonies also showed a significant reduction in DNA methylation levels, which could be a mechanism of increasing phenotypic plasticity. An example of epigenetic inheritance is parental imprinting. In parental imprinting, certain autosomal genes have seemingly unusual inheritance patterns. For example, the mouse LGF2 gene is expressed in a mouse only if it was inherited from the mouse's father.